In the first millennium, great Buddhist monasteries were established in the plains of eastern India and in Kashmir. These were intellectual centers where the science of the mind was studied in great detail. The finest intellectuals analyzed the path, the steps on the path towards Buddhahood or true knowledge. They sought to create a logical path which would lead us step by step towards that knowledge. These vast universities had hundreds of teachers and students who came from across India and from the many countries of Asia that had embraced Buddhist philosophy. The greatest of these was here at Nalanda. Here there was a spirit of vibrant intellectual thought, a climate of discussion and debate.
One of the most important universities in the world was developed not in the medieval West, but right here in India. And here I'm referring to the university consortium of Nalanda, Vikramashila, Somapura, Odantapuri. All of these various universities were instrumental in producing people who were capable of understanding and articulating what it means to have universal knowledge, knowledge that's applicable across cultures and across times.
So one's own salvation must achieve through one's own effort. Now, the main obstacle about salvation is ignorance. There are many different levels of ignorance. So logically, the antidote of ignorance is knowledge, not prayer.
Something which is so unique of Nalanda University in terms of its knowledge and wisdom is the tremendous logic, tremendous metaphysics, and the tremendous study of epistemology, which are all utilized to bring about incredible depth of the warmth in the human being.
Tibet did not have a written script till the 7th century. The acceptance of the Buddhist faith entailed the understanding of subtle philosophic concepts and profound commentaries. This transfer of knowledge would not have been possible without translating and writing it down. A very sophisticated language and a script capable of preserving this knowledge had to be formulated.
Oh yes, Tibetan language or script is very much copy and very much similar because it's based on one of the ancient Indian script. Once Buddhism reached Tibet and started translation, then the vocabulary, which in Buddhist tradition, then translated into Tibetan, not available in Tibetan language, so created new words. So therefore, eventually, the Sanskrit vocabulary or Sanskrit terminology and Tibetan terminology go exactly the same.
It was in the 8th century that Acharya Shanta Rakshita of the Nalanda University was invited to Tibet to teach Buddhism.
There were some practitioners, but there were no tradition of monkhood in Tibet, in Tibetan community. So Shanta Rakshita has greatest contribution in establishing the monastic community in Tibet.
So what he did was that while the richness, the main content of this whole legacy, which is in the form of philosophy, so that he started to impart by means of the logic. So he introduced logic there in Tibet. So with the study of logic, then you can't really escape. You can't really have room for diluting the concept. So the logic is like a very precise container.
So I think Tibetan quite fond, you see, use Nalanda name. So all Tibetan tradition, each different tradition, their original sort of masters all come from Nalanda. So I usually used to describe Tibetan Buddhist tradition is a pure lineage of Nalanda tradition. So I also, you see, start from age from 6, 7, already start memorizing these texts of Nalanda. At that time, I do not know who is the author of these texts.
Atisha was another great teacher who was persuaded to go to Tibet in the 11th century. He had studied at Nalanda and was a teacher at the Vikramshila University, also in Bihar. He helped to make the philosophy understandable to common Tibetans.
Another very interesting aspect of universal knowledge is that it can be condensed and transported. Atisha was also instrumental in the condensation of this knowledge so that it could be taken out of the university context, perhaps transported into another culture, and then take root. And this is one of the things that happened in Tibet in the 11th century.
Nalanda may have produced thousands of great scholars throughout the time. His Holiness Dalai Lama has enlisted 17 leading outstanding scholars of Nalanda Monastery throughout the time, and he composed a prayer to all those 17 outstanding scholars.
The universities of the plains of Bihar in medieval India had to have been incredible places to be at the time. When you think about the thousands and thousands of monks and scholars that were concerned with the most important things every day, year in and year out, we must understand that there was something incredibly special going on here.
We know about a few of the great teachers of the Nalanda University owing to the writings of the Tibetans. What a place Nalanda must have been, and what a great society it must have been out of which all this was born. A society which gave so much importance to rational thinking and the logical search for knowledge. Truly an intellectual society.
India, sacred land. Anything from India is something very sacred, very holy.
The monasteries re-established in South India are of the larger monastic institutions in Tibet, and they continue the traditional study of the all Tripitak through its commentaries.
So this knowledge is a pure knowledge. It has nothing to do with dogma. It has nothing to do with, a religion as such. So therefore, I call it as a legacy of India, the legacy of the world. So it must not disappear. It must remain for long.
India is an extraordinary country. Mother India, really, Mother India. India is one of the most religious, wrong word, the most spiritual countries on earth, because Indian people have a very deep understanding of the spiritual life.
One of the great miracles in the story of man is the spread of ideas across formidable natural barriers of high mountains and vast seas. Ideas do not know political and national boundaries. The ready acceptance of the ideas of life by the people of faraway lands underlies the sameness of human life and the human condition everywhere. Perhaps the greatest example of the travel of ideas is the vast spread of the Indic concepts of Buddhism and Hinduism in ancient times. These ideas were warmly accepted wherever they went. From Sri Lanka in the south to Mongolia in the north, from the river Volga in the west to Japan in the east.
So therefore, I always describe, or when I met Indian, I always say, you are traditionally our guru. We are Chela. You Indian are our guru. Then also I mentioned, we Tibetan, not only Indian gurus Chela, but also quite a reliable Chela. That means in guru's own land, Buddha Dharma, a lot also ups and downs. During this period, we, your Chela, kept throughout, you see, through centuries, we kept your knowledge intact. So we are quite a reliable Chela. So our relation is something very unique, Guru and Chela.